Yeah, say the craziest thing you can about crypto so we can clip this for TikTok.
How are we getting to 5 million?
Now that's
slowly.
Yeah.
So, and then all at once.
Yeah.
By the way, if you got to 5 million, because we have a grid to show it, it's that gold would be doubled in price.
Daniel, previous chart.
Yeah. Gold would double in price.
So this is if crypto reaches parity with gold in terms of market cap?
Yes.
Okay, it's not there already?
No, it's only 10% of the value of gold.
Wait, what? How much gold is there in the world?
There is
10?
$21 trillion of gold.
How much crypto? 3?
Bitcoin's 2.
Bitcoin by itself is 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the amount of money millennials choose to put into digital gold rivals the current amount of gold, you know what the flaw in that logic is? If there's this huge predilection for Bitcoin versus gold on the part of millennials, then the valuation of gold will shrink. So there's like, you might get parity, but that's because the amount of money in gold goes down.
Yeah. You know, I thought about, and I got the numbers a little wrong. Let's say gold has to go to like $7,000 an ounce. However, you know, I heard something interesting and I didn't realize gold has outperformed the S&P 6 of the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So
quietly too.
Yeah. So gold isn't a bad asset class, but Bitcoin. So I think even if it's not like millennials need to buy gold for gold to go up, you just need the boomers to hold it.
You need central banks around the world to buy it and hold it, which they are.
That's right.
Okay. Do you get involved in any of these conversations about Bitcoin reserve? Like, are you talking to people that are involved in this at all, or not really?
Well, there is. I'm not going to the White House this week. I'm not invited, but we do have conversations with Congress people.
Okay.
But you know,
are they like, Tom, what do you think if we do this?
Do you think it's a good idea?
They're like, can you pump my coin?
Yeah,
is it a good idea? Why would we have a Bitcoin strategic reserve?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Why?
Well, we already have one. We've confiscated Bitcoin.
That's not, all right, but why do you think it makes sense?
Why should we buy more?
If Bitcoin becomes the backbone of a new financial system, which it really is, like, you know, it's the king of the remittances. It is the immutable blockchain, and it's people have a lot of reasons that they trust it. In 14 years, no one's broken it, and there's no replacement. Then if the U.S. owns 1 million Bitcoin, they'll be the largest holder of Bitcoin.
But we're just what are we doing with it? We're facilitating trade with it, or we're just holding it? Well, if it's a strategic reserve with a strategic petroleum reserve, they use it when there's like an oil shortage, or there's a problem, or there's a dislocation. They will tap the reserve.
But yeah,
and then when prices calm down, they'll add it back. What do we? How does Michael's question, like what? How does a Bitcoin strategic reserve function?
Okay.
Would there be a shortage of Bitcoin?
And we have to what end?
These are good questions, but keep this in mind. So oil's a strategic commodity.
Clearly.
Okay. Now, oil only has 7 buyers, really. It's the refiners. Oil, like, that's produced everywhere, it's really just bought by refiners.
Who then turn it into something useful.
Yeah, to distillates and gasoline.
Okay.
But there's really only 7 buyers. And so if you look at oil, the oil market that's bought for distillate, and then take the total trading volume of oil against that, what do you think the ratio is?
I don't know, tiny, right?
400. For every dollar of oil that's bought at a pump, it's traded 400 times on speculation.
Wow.
Tom Lee is stirring waves with his revolutionary proposition. Could Bitcoin's future be determined by its potential as a strategic reserve? This ambitious parallel to the oil markets has caught the keen eyes of financial magnates such as Goldman Sachs and JPMorgan Chase. As whispers of Bitcoin adoption echo through the halls of these behemoth institutions, investors hold their breaths. What if Bitcoin's trading reaches unparalleled heights? Welcome back to Investocracy Crypto.
Price speculation around it, that you could be whipsawed if you didn't control some way to manage prices.
Okay. So Bitcoin is the same.
Yeah, so let's say Bitcoin,
speculation around
let's say that it becomes 10% of people's net worth and banks start to use it to secure information. Because remember, the blockchain, you can just store 1 pixel of a 10 million page document, but the hash will detect if you changed 1 pixel. So that's why you're going to use the Bitcoin to secure information, right? Well, that's really valuable. But then wouldn't the U.S. want to be able to control this blockchain or exert some way to censor it somehow?
Okay.
And, once banks start trading Bitcoin, like Citadel, it will probably be the most profitable product for Goldman and JPMorgan.
Because of how volatile it is,
Yeah.
bid-ask spreads are wider.
Correct. And if
Okay.
oil's traded 400 times, Bitcoin might be 1,000 times. It's going to be a hugely traded commodity.
Okay, so this is a productive thing, even though, to my earlier point, we have a budget deficit, we have tons of debt. This is a project that we should also undertake now because it might come in handy at some point in the future.
Yeah, well, the U.S. owns 200,000 Bitcoin, as long as it's not, those keys are safe.
Okay.
And so let's say they buy 800,000 more through the Exchange Stability Fund, so another 80 billion.
If they do that, I think the price goes to $1 million too. I just don't know that they're going to do that.
Yeah. But then if Bitcoin gets to 36 million, there's no national debt.
Okay. In that fantasy, who do you sell the Bitcoin to pay off the debt, though? I've heard that before.
Michael Saylor, hello.
So Michael Saylor buys the Bitcoin from us, and we use the proceeds to extinguish our debt.
Well, it's not. You don't need to sell it because it's almost the same thing as like if Nvidia is 3 trillion. It's not like someone would say, "Oh, well, you're going to liquidate all 3 trillion, so it's not worth 3 trillion." It's as long as the value is stored at that level.
Okay.
And you can still trade
Then
it.
we could say it's an asset that offsets the debt that we have. We don't have to use it to pay down the debt.
Yeah.
We could just say we're backing that debt with this asset.
I'll guarantee you if Bitcoin got to 36 million, okay, theoretically, the US cost of debt would go to zero.
Okay.
They would have because they have zero net debt.
Consider the petroleum markets, where every dollar aimed at the actual purchase of oil is dwarfed by the $400 devoted to speculative trades. This foundational principle drives economies to maintain substantial petroleum reserves, safeguarding against volatile market upheavals. The concept is simple yet profound. Stabilize supply, manage price swings. Transposing this logic onto Bitcoin, a digital asset with no physical boundaries, ventures into territories yet unexplored.
I think the market panics. But Powell's speaking at 12:30, and you're going to see the May odds 100%.
Because Powell's gonna make it all better. Like he's gonna calm people down. Like we're aware of the situation.
Well, because this is like now with Atlanta, GDP now negative, and then jobs. This is not like the Fed can sit there hawkishly.
It's sort of funny to have a day where there's a jobs report that disappoints. The market's been selling off all week. It gets even worse on Friday, and Powell has to compete for airtime with Michael Saylor because the White House is filled with crypto people.
Yeah,
it's going to be a wild day. Well, Tom, this has been awesome. I have one more thing to share with people.
Tom Lee posits that Bitcoin could witness speculation levels exceeding those of oil, primarily due to its inherent digital supremacy. It's borderless and accessible to all. Envision Bitcoin trading not just as a reserve asset, but on scales that transcend traditional market values. Should Lee's predictions take root, major financial institutions globally would have a golden goose in Bitcoin, with Goldman Sachs and JPMorgan Chase potentially spearheading this financial renaissance. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Just kind of take some stock of the whole conversation a little bit, because you've been very bullish for a while, and you've been right. Does 2 months cause you, we're kind of basically, let's say the S&P is unchanged, the NASDAQ's down a few percent, we're 2 months into the year, there's a lot of uncertainty about, we talked about immigration, tax, tariff, geopolitics, the list goes on and on. Things are likely to cool out a little bit at some point, right? On that sort of front, we get some of that uncertainty out of the way. How are you thinking, just if you want to put it in a nutshell, the economy this year? It sounds like you think rates should go lower. You think inflation is probably not going up much higher. And then generally, how are you thinking about the stock market?
I mean, the market is trying to price in a lot of these uncertainties right now. And so it's understandable that we're churning. But investors don't want to become too bearish, because the market sentiment, and it's already measurable, like the AAII survey, which is what we've used for the last 14 years. I think it's the best retail sentiment survey, is at the same bearish levels it was in the fall of 2022. So retail sentiment, and it's probably because there's been a ton of margin calls last couple weeks, is at the levels that were at the depths of that recent bear market. So the investors view this as a crisis when it's really a growth scare. So to me, I think there's a good chance we're making our lows for the first half like this week. And
like down 5-6%, you mean?
yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing is I'm not that optimistic about the job picture for the near term. So maybe that's one last leg. But the reality is that a lot of bad news has gotten priced in. And, on the flip side of this is that the closer we get to stall speed, the more the Fed has to get off neutral. And I think the White House will have to back off talk of things that could be hurting the economy.
Do you think we're going to get a 10% pullback in the S&P this year? Because we did have one July highs to the August lows, and things kind of accelerated into that August low, and it felt a little panicky. And again, since then, we haven't had too much panic. I think that move in December after the Fed meeting, that felt really bad. But we were not making, it didn't take long to make new highs.
Well, I think that July to August was like essentially, I would say Fed driven.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. Because it felt like either the Fed made a policy error or the Fed turned hawkish.
Right.
But either way, we had a big drawdown. Will that happen this year? I mean, yeah, I think it'll happen. If I'm guessing, it's more in the second half. So I think this is just a flesh wound right now, not the source of a drawdown.
Okay, so flesh wound, how much upside do you think if we get a lot of those headwinds kind of out of the way, a lot of those uncertainties we just talked about? Let's say we get the base case on that kind of pro-growth agenda that a lot of folks were excited about.
Let me be clear why I don't think it's 10%. Because let's say that some policies implemented that would cause the U.S. stock market to go down 10.
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you the rest of the world's down 30.
Right.
So will Europe and Canada, Mexico dig in and we'll just power through this? No, they're going to capitulate. So the reality is that this brinksmanship probably means the other side caves in. That's why I don't think we're...
But it probably takes longer than expected because I think we keep throwing these threats out, but we don't actually put any requests for concessions out, right? There really aren't that many right now. I mean, it just seems like it's a bit of a tit for tat. And I think the other side is just kind of sitting there and they're taking the volleys right now because they don't really know what they want.
I'm not an administrator, so I don't know what kind of back channel talk there is. I'm sure there is, so I don't have an answer.
If the predictions hold, Bitcoin might not only dominate trading desks, but could redefine financial order, promising a prosperous horizon for those daring enough to venture into crypto assets. Current speculations peg Bitcoin trade volume to skyrocket, aligning it alongside the world's most prolific assets. But what do you think? Share your perspective. And finally, if you would like to know more about cryptocurrencies or specifically Bitcoin, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.